Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Monday, the 4th of September. So looking at the euro dollar first, and well, we've seen a bit of a pitch back on Friday following the ECB's manipulation, as I could only call it, having watched it occur on Friday. The euro probably looks earning more weaker than it was before. Already on the dailies we had the pivot swing, which was sort of triggered and started moving. Currently, there's sort of a bigger time frame data that some of our traders will be looking at in terms of band plays for Charlie, and certainly a close back within one, and that may see us pushing back down as well. So a couple of things to suggest a bit more bearishness here as we look at it on this on the shorter term stroke intermediate term time frames, and well, the market looks relatively flat in terms of what it did on Friday. It did pitch up quite strong on the on one part of the news, and then sold off pretty strong when the ECB decided to release a statement. Perfectly well timed for a Friday. Anyway, so there we are, sitting pretty flat on this morning's trade. We've got the weekly pivot above, which may cause a draw at some point. We've already hit the daily. I'm erring, as I said, from the bigger picture to the downside. There are trend lines we could be drawing across. So certainly there's a trend line across across the lows here. Sorry, it's got numbers on it, but certainly there's a bit of a gap there as well on some platforms, which may yet need to be filled, and in doing so will draw us back down to Friday's lows. As I said, we may see a continuation to that side. Still a certain uncertainty within the markets. Certain uncertainty. There we go. With the North Korea situation, which is pushing some of the currencies around a little bit, and may do some more yet. Now the pound dollar pushed back up a little bit on Friday and end up slightly more positive. One thing is it didn't sell off so much, having not been manipulated. You can see I enjoyed that on Friday. Where we're sitting here, higher low, higher high in this sort of intermediate time frames that we're seeing. We have got a weekly pivot below, which may be a draw yet to the downside, and perhaps if the euro continues selling off, we'll see the pound follow suit here, and running through the 34, it may just draw it a little bit. However, these two currencies could get unentwined for a short while as we see reaction to Friday's comments. Dollar yen, well, it's recovered. I say recovered, but we've seen a bit more downward movement. This is partially risk on situation back on there. There is a huge gap, as I can see above us, so any sort of movement to the upside there may give the close, and we've got the daily pivot above, so any sort of decent setup this morning. There is a bit of divergence across these hourlies here, and it may just want to we may see price start pushing up as we go through the morning, but at the moment, as I say, there's a bit of risk on. Oil's pushed up, gold's pushed up as well, and well, it may be that we see a continuation to the downside of this yet, depending on what happens with North Korea there. Okay, Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar is really quite range bound overall. It has been for the last couple of weeks or so, and it's not making it the easiest of markets to trade. Has got the weekly pivot below at the moment. Is looking like it's heading back down towards that as we look down at its intermediate time frame, and you see we've been chopping around. The gap was filled through the Asian session there, and now we've got this bearish engulfing bar sort of sitting over the top at the moment, which would suggest, as I say, maybe down to the weekly there, maybe more, but it has, as I said, it has been sitting in relatively tight range. We could see that continue, which may see it selling off this morning. Canadian dollar. I just redrew regression channel there last week, and as you see, we're sitting around by the average here. It's whether or not this average, we get a bounce back off this average sort of zone. It's looking like it might have done on a bit more on Friday, but sold off through the Asian session this morning. But perhaps it may push up towards that weekly pivot that sits above us. It's just running into its daily pivot at the moment, so any continued um, weakness in the Canadian dollar could, as I say, see this pushing up. It's filled the gaps and everything else to perhaps a move above the daily pivot, and it'll be a bit more bullish towards the weekly. And I will just look at gold, just bearing in mind it's sitting there in pushing into new highs here. It's broken through the prior highs there with quite some gusto. It's brought on, and I say helped by the very fact of the situation in North Korea, I would suggest, with the risk on. And we're seeing this sort of push up towards its monthly R1 at some point, maybe on this shorter intermediate time here. You've got a big gap, and just like the yen, it's got some divergence and may roll back down if we see this some sort of settling of the nerves throughout the day. But we've got the weekly pivot way below as well, so we'll see whether we can get a more sustained move over the next day or so. Maybe back to that. Okay, that's pretty much it for me. News-wise today, there's very little out there. We've got the US bank holiday this afternoon, which should affect the markets much more than Canadian bank holiday, as it's Labour Day. It may be a quiet day all in all, and we often see this as we almost back to school, early part of September, first week or so. It takes a week or two to get through back into the markets, back into normality, if there is such a thing anymore. One bit of news we've got at 9:30, we've got the construction PMI. It's a lower ranking number in my book for the UK there, so the pound may get some volatility around about 9:30. But that's about it. Have a great morning. Have a great day. Bye for now.